Well, I mean, we start now our session under the title, I Know Nothing About Computers. Our session is going to be held in English. I think translation is available. And I have with me on the stage right now, Nahla Hamdani from Tunisia, and Lina Jarrous from Lebanon, and myself, Dima Jweihan from Jordan, and we'll give you more information about us shortly. So Nahla, can you start by introducing yourself?
Thank you, Dima. Hello, everyone. I'm Nahla Hamdani from Tunisia. I'm a project manager in WeYouth organization. It's a local organization. I work with WeYouth for 1 year now, and we work about adults and young leaders in all Tunisia.
All right. Ahlan wa sahlan. You're welcome. Lina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm the Chief of Communication and Seeds for Legal Initiatives. We're a local organization that works on simplifying the law and make it accessible to people. Our mandate is mainly focused on freedom of expression, assembly, and association, and we have been operating in Lebanon since 2017.
Lisa, can you hear us now?
I can hear all of you very clearly, but I'm not sure if you can hear me.
No, we can hear you very well. Welcome to the stage.
Excellent. Wow, that was exciting.
Right. Yeah, so we did the first round of introductions and it just like stopped at my end. This is Dima Jweihan from the International Center for Not-for-Profit Law. I'm the Executive Director, which is based in Amman. Our work in the region has covered many countries, including Lebanon, Tunisia, Morocco, and others. And we focus on NGO law reform and law reform related also to other civic space issues such as freedom of expression, assembly, and public participation. I'll leave it now to our host for this talk show, Lisa. Please, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Dina. And thank you so much for stepping in so agile to this session. And another time from me, welcome to all of you, to all of the listeners to this session on stage. My name is Lisa Vermeer. I'm the Digital Policy Advisor at ICNL and Dima's colleague. I'm based in Amsterdam, and I'm very, very excited to be here, to be participating in Bread&Net. Before I joined ICNL, I was a diplomat at the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I always wanted to go to Bread&Net, but they said, well, no, we have a mission in Beirut, so your colleague who's based there, go there, and we don't want to fund any travel to Lebanon. So there's one positive side to this virtual event, that I can be here, but at the same time, I really hope to be able to see and meet all of you in person, and to also meet you all, my kind and awesome speakers on this stage. So that's for the introduction. I'm really excited to be talking with you, and well, let's skip the introduction because you already did that. So let's kick off this talk show. We are going to talk about campaigns that were run by the three of you. And you aren't exactly computer experts by nature, but you are working a lot with computers, devices, the internet, etc. So with our conversation, what we want to show to you and inspire you about campaigning in difficult environments, and how you can actually shape your narratives, use social media, use the internet, and use devices. So there are similarities between the work that you have done, but there's also differences. So we're going to touch upon these different aspects of it, and we really hope to also offer some narratives that can help not so tech-savvy civil society organizations to really go and work with technology and work with the internet, and to be more aware of what your rights are when you are online, working online with computers, with phones, with cameras, everything. So where I want to start is with the technology itself. So now, especially now in times of a pandemic, all of your campaigns are completely online. And for most of us, like all over the world, everyone is really online, and we use a wide array of social media apps. Now this Hop-In is our newest addition to our skills on learning to work with new platforms. So let me begin with you, Nahla. You told me that you learned your basic computer skills at school. So I'm really curious to learn a little bit more about that, and especially whether those skills are actually enough. Are they really the basics that you needed? And what did you have to learn more to be able to advocate and use the internet and devices for your work now?
In Tunisia, we learned how to use a computer and other devices from our childhood or primary school, to be exact. And this was obligatory for everyone. But in my current advocacy work, even if I thought that I know enough or I have enough knowledge about everything, I realized that I always need trainings for every updated platform. And of course, we have to be updated every second and every day because the internet and the platforms are always will help us every day.
Yeah, thank you. So the school, what you learned in school was obligatory, and did it really provide you? Do you think it really helped you, or should it be more for the future generation?
It was basic. It was how we use computer, turn it on or off, or how we can use the internet. But in bachelor, we must educate how to use advanced platforms and to know more about computer and devices.
Yeah. So what you also shared with me earlier is that that aside from the fact that you have to keep yourself updated, and also about the risk, like one of the risks that is not the devices itself, but it's really access to the internet. So if I ask you, should access to internet, should that be available all the time for everyone? Should it be a public utility?
It should be. From my point of view, it should be access for everyone, especially now because our work or our studies are all online, and the fees of the internet are a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, that's really a problem all over the world. So thank you so much. And let me turn to you, Dima. So you're a very skilled lawyer, and I know that you are very aware of like what kind of information is sensitive from a legal point of view. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you think is the difference between sensitive information from that perspective and sensitive information when you are using social media and the internet and technology?
I mean, yes, definitely. When over the course of our work and also studies as well, we come across a variety of laws that are applicable to speech, whether offline or online. And we usually, nowadays and previously, we use computers, laptops, various devices, mobile and the like, on communication, also work and everything else. So for us, it's always a struggle about the literacy that we need to have about what is the type of information that is sensitive to be, for example, sent over the phone or over using this app, let's say. And things like, even if this information is legal, but I want to protect it in a way, like, for example, it's private, for privacy issues, or because I want to on a certain platform, make sure that a certain audience only can watch it or can see it. This is the kind of literacy that we tend to learn by trial and error. So sometimes we're put in some embarrassing situations because we just learn them as they happen. And because we just don't know. I mean, sometimes you really have to study about the features of the platform you're using and the like. And read more about, the device and the application you're using. It's not only just using the device. So I think this is the type of literacy that sometimes we lack as lawyers, even though we know all the details about the legal framework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you feel that you have the skills to know and to assess what kind of information is more private, less private, more sensitive, and that you have to, like, the level of protection that you have to apply? Do you feel that you're able to have that skills to assess it?
No, I mean, it's basically, it goes a multi-tier issue. I mean, sometimes it goes, like, for example, when, in work, we do have policies on what we have to share, what we can share, what is sensitive information, in which platform. So we have these policies and we follow them. But also, during the course of work and life and using these devices, we tend to start like developing the information. But I have to say, it's all like it's a naturally like where we need to read more because I personally care about what information is being shared, where it's shared, and how. So it's kind of like self-education, I would say, but in personal stuff. But in terms of the organization, we tend to also adopt policies in terms of sharing content about different things, whether countries, using etc. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what kind of, if you think about there's probably quite some digital experts listening and participating in Bread&Net. So what, from your point of view, to really help the civil society representatives and lawyers that are working their way through working online, what kind of skills are needed more? Like, what is the most important?
I mean, I have to say that, yes, at some point we felt that we are basically a little bit behind compared to the experts. And basically, even those CSOs who work on technology issues, we were a little bit behind on using the technology and making sure, that we are protected in terms of privacy, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of also like judging what is a useful platform to use for certain activity. And this is where sometimes we basically had the help from these CSOs, and where I realized that there is a lot to be learned here. And I think it's very important to be introduced and also learned and practiced by all civil society organizations of all types and sizes, and also lawyers as well. Because really, I mean, especially after the pandemic, everything has moved online. I mean, even the amount of sensitive files and documents that we receive on WhatsApp sometimes or Facebook. I mean, in Tunisia, my colleagues in Tunisia, all their work is on Facebook. So I go I open my messenger the next morning and I see like a lot of documents and I go like, guys, I mean, you cannot just share this on Messenger. So all of this, I mean, although it's a very easy platform for their work, but I feel that there is need of literacy for
that's exactly what you
privacy,
say.
etc. Mm-hmm.
Is to find the right platform that is easy enough to use, but still the right level of security.
Exactly.
I think that is very important, to be able to at least decide what to do on which platform for what reason.
Exactly.
So that's often
to basically bridge the gap between the technical CSOs work on a scope of work and the other CSOs and experts that work on tech issues. And I'm very happy that we're here on Bread&Net to raise this issue.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And Lina, you're the communications lead of Seed. So even before we all moved online, you were designing and implementing online communication campaigns with your videos and on different channels. So can you tell me a little bit more, in addition to what kind of devices you use, like how do you use the platforms and how do you decide what to use for what purpose and what audience?
Switching to online devices and platforms was the logical thing to do, of course, because we cannot use the TV stations because they are highly politicized and they cost a lot. So when switching to online platforms, we had to see what are the platforms that are used mainly by the Lebanese audience, and it's either, I mean, we have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channels, and Twitter, of course. But to be able to put the content and the videos, we had to go to Facebook and Instagram because they are the most used, and we have more space than the other platforms, of course. Instagram, usually we target the young generation. Facebook is for a bit older generation. So yeah. And one of the
things, any specific platforms on, for example, that you're using for a specific regional audience, or anything outside the big US-based companies? Or not really?
No, not really, because these are the platforms we use in Lebanon. We're very US based. We use very US based tools, yes. But there are a lot of things we had to learn in order to use these platforms, because the communication means changes over online platforms. Like, I used to be a producer for a TV station, and to communicate a message on TV is different than communicating the message on online platforms. So this is one thing we had to learn, how to identify the audience and to have a direct and clear message, and simplified, of course, because we work on simplifying the legal terms that are usually a bit difficult for the people who did not study law.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent bridge to the next issue that I wanted to address, and to really dive into the campaigns that you all designed and the differences and the similarities. So I'm really interested to learn how you build your campaign strategies and how you decided about the goals that you wanted to reach. So you are all using social media tools, of course, and social media for the platforms, but you have targeted messages and intended goals, but the calls to action that you did are different in nature, and your audience are different in nature. So I also think that the narrative that you decided to use differ. So Dima, can I ask with you to, we talked a lot about the campaign that you did on the cybercrime law in Jordan. So I think it's really interesting to share this example, because cybercrime laws are popping up all over the world. Like, currently, our ICNL colleagues are looking at 2 different new cybercrime laws in Nicaragua, in Cambodia. So one is coming. So, and these laws, together with the penal codes, are really used to intense criminalization. So most people associate this with really computer-related crimes, but you made this campaign to make people realize that that's more than that. So can you tell us a little bit about the activities that you did as part of the campaign? And also, what did you do to make ordinary internet users, ordinary people, understand why this law impacted them?
So the pieces of the stories are as follows. So ICNL is an organization that provides technical information, expertise, analysis on draft laws. So we're lawyers, we write these long papers about why the laws are wrong. And basically the draft law showed up, and we had concerns about it because, yes, it wasn't only about hacking or stealing someone's credit card and the like. It also included, it already included a very problematic provision on online defamation, which is very similar to defamation that is in the penal code, but with a more severe penalty. But that draft, when it was in, it also included very problematic terms about the use of something called hate speech, spreading rumors, or for example, and also like saying like fake news, or like saying like, some sort of criticism for public personalities. So we thought, that, hey, this thing can be basically applicable to every single person using social media in Jordan. It can apply to mom groups who talk about, children issue. If they decided, for example, to criticize somebody, or maybe they go into an argument online. Oh my God! Someone can be put in jail for 2 years because of that. So I felt that this is something that is very relevant to everybody, and everybody needs to know that it's relevant to them. Cybercrimes law were always thought that they are related to journalists or media people active online, but this draft was related to every single person of us. Now, we basically got, because we work on this law. I have to say that we are also grateful for the local organizations who also work on media issues and internet freedoms in Jordan, who basically called for a meeting, and they say that we need to collaborate and start a campaign. And the good thing about this is that every one of us pitched in their piece. So we pitched in the legal component. The other organizations, for example, some of them are here in Bread&Net, like JOSA, Jordan Open Source Association. They kind of like started also providing the technical information about why this is problematic from a privacy issue and surveillance issue. Other organizations like Haber, for example, they shared these nice cartoons for people, like for the public to kind of like understand why this is problematic. One of the cartoons that I remember was basically somebody trying to cross the electric wires, trying to make a speech that doesn't violate the cybercrimes law, and it was really funny and relevant. So that's basically how we pitched it in. Now, what we did was, yes, we continue to engage with the policy papers, comments, and engage offline with ministers, decision makers, and the like. But for the public, we basically had an electronic campaign. We had a public debate, and in that public debate, it was so funny that we more than a dozen of university students who are less than 20 years old showed up, and they said that they were in prison because they just shared a content on social media that was considered to be offensive according to the existing law. So everybody thought that if this is the existing law, what will the amendments do? So everybody will be put in jail from this. Yeah. The last thing I want to say about the campaign.
And,
sorry. Yeah. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Dima, for sharing this. And it's really nice to hear that you managed to make funny things out of something so like daunting as the cybercrime law. And is there a way how you responded or saw how people were engaging? Did you see also a relation between the engagement between the funny parts with the actual more legal advocacy efforts?
So, yeah, definitely for the public, especially the youth, because these are the ones who are always targeted, the activists in universities, online, and the like, we really made it, we made it sure to basically make them understand that this is related to them. And the key thing was that we had an argument about this law is trying, or these amendments were trying to prevent hate speech and create hate among people in the society. But the penalty for it was one that allows the government to put people in pretrial detention for up to 1 month until investigation is over. And then we basically started telling people about how, for example, a content maybe an inappropriate, a funny joke that could be considered inappropriate by some people can be basically reported, and until this report is investigated, people can be put in pre-trial detention. They can access the phone, look at all the private pictures, and maybe it mounts up to maybe other penalties in the penal code. So it's basically kind of a green card or a green light for for the security to basically investigate our devices and go into our lives. And once we started explaining this to the people, they felt that this is very relevant to them. And this is where it clicked that, oh my God, I mean, this is relevant. We have to be very careful and we have to respond. We had an electronic storm that basically hit the trend for that day. And we explained all the various components of it, and everybody engaged, from authors to writers and the university students. Yeah.
I think it makes it very concrete then, like what people do on a daily basis, and then how it links to this legal oppression. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Thanks so much. So, Lina, let me turn to you. So, you decided to run a campaign specifically on freedom of expression in response to arrests of journalists and raise awareness on the importance of these rights, and then during the uprising morphing into more awareness about protest rights and what can happen if you're out on the streets. So you said before that you were using social media channels because other online sources or offline media is too much politicized. So well, we actually discussed like how did you decide about which tools to use? So maybe you can tell me a little bit about how did you develop the messages, and did you also try to make it as tangible as possible? And what are the most, like, can you share one of the most impactful narratives where you saw a lot of engagement online?
Okay. So yes, the reaching the public via social media remains more feasible, as mentioned before. And because we know also that the vast majority of the public has access to these social media platforms, so we can reach out to biggest number possible. A few factors helped us decide which tools to use and how to develop the content for these tools. Like we had to go for the simplicity, simplify the message, and to go for to be more creative in sharing this information, because sharing legal information is not always easy and attractive. So the more creative we are, the more reduced the information is, the more it reaches out to people. We have a lot of content generated on daily basis on social media. A lot of information is out there. So the concern is always to try to get the viewers' attention while scrolling down on Instagram and Facebook. So
it's endless scrolls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and how do you make your own content come up first?
We have different ways, actually. I mean, the same information is developed into infographic posts that has minimum information, but the key words that we need the people to know about, the key legal terms that they should keep in mind when they are protesting or when they are expressing their opinion online or offline even. The same information is developed also in 1 minute videos where we talk straight to the people so they can recognize the face and relate to the person who is talking in the video. We have infographic videos also when the content is a bit more difficult, so we rely on the infographic. We also use the stories on Instagram, and we just noticed lately that the stories are very successful because we have a thing that we call the question of the week, and we post a question on the story of Instagram, and people would answer. They would try to figure out what the answer is, and then the next day we would put the video, and the day after we will have an infographic post about it. So we noticed that they are more engaged today.
One of these questions, what was the last question?
Like, do you consider defamation should be a crime, or is it freedom of expression?
Okay. So you get people really responding to it.
Yes, they would respond because it's easy. I mean, they would either have to choose one of the answers or they will have to say yes or no. So it doesn't really take much time for them to answer. And then the next day they will have the answer in a video or in a post. And this is how we are introducing we are introducing the laws in the daily life of people.
So if you integrate these keywords in your infographics, one of the keywords is proportionality?
Of course.
Or what kind of keywords are you using? How do you try to use the keywords for the...
It was really important for us. I don't know if it's the same in Jordan and in Tunisia, but people are not really familiar with the laws of the country. And it was really important for us at Seeds to make the law more familiar and more simple so that people would know their rights and they would know what to ask for and how to protect themselves, and especially in the freedom of expression and assembly area. And what we have witnessed the past year with the uprising in Lebanon and the violations that people were subjected to while protesting on the streets, we realized how important it was for them to know what are their legal rights. So these are the legal terms or the keywords that they have to memorize, like their rights when they are being arrested, or their rights when, I don't know, they are chanting and protesting, because as Dima said, defamation is a very a powerful tool that the governments used against people usually, and it's really there are a lot of elastic terms around these provisions in the law, and they would arrest people randomly for it. So this is what we really.
It's interesting to hear you talk about this chanting, because I think that's a very powerful tool that we have seen, like the chants, but also the sharing of the chants and the amplification of it on social media. But it's also at the same time, it's really important to be aware of what might be impacting this chanting, this activity. So thank you so much, Lina. Nahla, let me turn to you. So. You're currently running a campaign that is raising awareness about internet freedom for all internet users that want to speak their minds and share their opinions online, and that is currently ongoing. And one of the services you told me is that you're building a platform to connect these internet users with the lawyers online to provide advice on the laws. So what do you say on social media to make internet users find this platform and to become interested and to call to action to actually seek advice?
So for every campaign in WeYouth organization, we thought that we should follow a certain editorial line. That led us to reach our goals. For example, this platform we are working on have one specific goal, which also represents the goal of the project, which is internet freedom. So our editorial line is creating a digital consulting space, providing laws updates concerning blogging, and communicating news and framing blogs. So that's why we're trying to use two main communication channels, which are the Facebook and the Instagram, to direct our potential users to the platform with simple call to action, like express your opinion with responsibility, for example. Okay. And through our visual guidelines, like photos and videos, we are offering to our followers an opportunity to have a consulting with the lawyers with zero fees, meaning that our strong point is it is free for everyone.
Okay, that is of course very attractive. Okay, so and do you think that is also one of the most successful narratives that really pulls the people towards the platform? So you have free legal advice.
Of course, the fees of the lawyers are so expensive. So every young finds if he try to find a lawyer without fees, so everyone is going to running through them.
It's really interesting to see that, like, of course you can develop strong keywords that are related to the law, but in the end it will be the keywords like free. That is the most attractive. That's just, you may have to make it very earthy. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And I also, if you allow me to look back at an earlier campaign you've been doing at WeYouth organization, the WeVote campaign, because you told me that you actually saw an actual change in behavior of the voters, that they, in the second round, they turned out to vote in Tunisia. And I think that's quite impressive. So what is your, I think that had nothing to do with free legal advice. So what was the main trigger to make people really listen to your call to action?
And concerning WeVote campaign, the most important call to action that changed people's mind in this period and motivate them to go and vote was two things. We tried to do a door-to-door raise awareness, which gave them the opportunity to register in the election from their home. So they don't need to travel or to walk through to the election center. Also, we made a video that we posted via Facebook, had a direct call to action to youth from eldest people, and that gave us a high level of credibility.
Okay, and do you also think, like Lina said, that it has to do with some recognizability of certain people that make the video and that become trusted faces and that arouses people to act?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there were the videos with you, yes. I guess, because you're a very trusted person.
I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So
yeah, actually, I have to follow up on this, on the trusted people issue. This is also something that we tend to also lack. I mean, it's just like how people lack some legal knowledge. Also, they lack how, the ways to voice their messages and the knowledge. So this is where I think I personally learned a lot from the cyber crimes campaign, because there were things that I learned and I had to work with that I wouldn't learn if I continued to do our work with the usual practice that we had for the longest years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Okay. So let's turn to the legal environment in internet use, because these are all like the main triggers for your campaigns was that there is a problem with laws and that we have to respond to it and make people more aware and knowledgeable and trusting lawyers, interesting lawyers. So, Lina, can I turn to you first? So, Lebanon has a wide array of laws that regulate speech, and it really depends on the topic. You told me before which laws, but it's really quite a lot. So you have to be quite literate to understand which apply. And you also told me about the Cyberlaw that introduces criminal penalties. And can you tell us a little bit more about this particular law, and maybe also about what about the legal environment that's used by the authorities to silence expression and to intimidate internet users?
Oh, they have quite a variation of laws to use on daily basis, like the penal code, the military code, the publication code. They have all the legal texts you can imagine to use. And so they use mainly the Lebanese penal code to criminalize defamation, insults, blasphemy in general. And one thing I have to say is, in order for defamation or slander to happen or to be considered a crime, it has to happen publicly. And until 2018, the Article 209 that defines what are the publishing means that would make a defamation public did not mention the internet as a public medium. In 2018, the Lebanese government developed the cybercrime law, or we call it the internet law, with the intention of protecting users from cybercrime laws and to ensure their online security. But they also used this to warrant the use of the penal code and expanded the mandate to censor and outlaw defamation on social media. So basically, they introduced an old law that was made back in the 80s, I don't know when, very, very old, and they introduced it to something new to exercise more restrictions on freedom of expression online.
Yeah, we see that happen more, that older laws are like dusted off and taken again, and people think, like legislators think, oh, well, there's the internet, there's something new. But for example, in France, they had this law that was about nouvelles faux. So it's a French term for new fake news, and it was never used. And then it was like, oh, let's put it on the table and start implement it. So yeah, that's, unfortunately, we see that a lot, and with minor tweaks as well.
We were happy to see that they were drafting a new cybercrime law, because we did not have that before, and it was kind of perceived positively at first, because we thought finally we will have something to protect us from fraud, from cybercrime. But unfortunately, they had to insert something that was old, like the penal code, in the internet law, to put more restrictions on freedom of expression. And now that I remembered that this law dated from 1943, so imagine, like,
Wow. And you used the term elastic terms before, and I think that is a very nice way, or also very visual. You see how it can be moved by people to do whatever. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, on how you?
When we did a video to explain what are the judicial elastic terms, what did they mean, we used like the ressort, that thing that goes, so we use this in our visuals to explain. There are terms that are very vague, and they are deliberately vague, so they would be able to arrest people based on discretionary power. Like, for example, public moral. I mean, what is really public moral? Who can define that truly? Or something related to national security, or maybe I don't know, religious feeling. What is a religious feeling really? And how can this term be unanimous to all people from different cultures and different backgrounds? So these terms, we find them in the penal code, and we think it's very dangerous, because when we want to criminalize something, it has to be very specific and very clear, and we cannot use these broad terms that are subject to one's beliefs or cultural or religious backgrounds and impose them on people. So, and one of the things we are trying to raise awareness about is, Nahla said that with freedom of expression comes responsibility. This is true, but today we are still facing the danger of criminalizing freedom of expression. We need people to be responsible from one side, yes, but we also need the government to stop criminalizing people for expressing their opinion, even though it can be sometimes maybe hurtful, it can be not approved by everyone, but that doesn't mean people should go to prison for that. It should not be considered a crime.
You are so right. And I'm really, really worried about the increase in cybercrime laws, especially in the combination with penal code. So what Mohammed said in the chat is that it's really important to use the lessons that we have from campaigns that have been passed on these kind of laws, to use them in the future whenever this cybercrime pops up. So that is to do this penal code, cyber connection, and understand it and push back. So Nahla, you told me that actually in Tunisia there is relatively few laws that are governing freedom of expression, which makes it maybe even easy. Yeah, well, there's still a lot of intimidation on free speech. So can you tell me that, like, how does that work? How is the intimidation legitimized, and how do you make people aware of it when there are not a lot of laws that you can really refer to?
We don't even have an internet law.
No?
Yeah, our government used the freedom expression law, general laws, or any laws who can consider it as the speech as a criminal act. So we don't have specific ones. That's why in our project we're trying to do to have a section of our platform to frame the blogs and to update people about the new laws, which mean making ordinary people aware of violation and give them advice of how they can respond in case of in those cases especially.
Okay. So you told me before that there is quite some, like that it's often difficult to fight back against repression on freedom of expression because you don't know how it is justified. So would you say it is better if there is a law that is actually providing terms that you can talk about, or would you, if you would advise now a policymaker, is it better to have a new law regulating the internet, or would you say, well, refrain from it and try to, do it differently?
No, I think if we have a special law, everyone will know his limits or the words he can't say. But in our case, we don't have something special. So, like Lina said, our government can treat you about our the security of the territory, about the religion, about any word they can't. They don't want to hear it from normal people. So I think a special law can be more practical here in this case.
Yeah, it's really a matter of careful lawmaking, I think, especially concerning the internet.
Yeah.
So Dima, I wanted to ask you about the guide that you made earlier about social media, about all the laws that are impacting social media use that you initiated and wrote together with JOSA. So, but I also saw the question about the cybercrime law, but maybe it's interesting to ask you first, like, what do you think currently, because the guide was published beginning of last year, which is ages ago in terms of the internet. So what do you think is currently the biggest the biggest legal threat to social media users, and do you think that you actually become a criminal when you use the internet if you are living in Jordan currently, or is it not yet that bad?
Well, I mean, yes, we did this guide, and we realized that by reading the various laws and terms, arguably, we can say that there is more than 10 laws that regulate online expression, or like expression, basically, when you put it on the internet. The rationale behind this was basically we wanted at that time, ages ago, when the cybercrimes law amendments were produced last year, a couple of years ago, we wanted to build the case that we have all these laws, so we really don't need an additional law. And we also also worked with JOSA to clarify that even if we don't have the laws, social media itself has own options and tools that one can use to prevent the spread of inappropriate or like harmful speech, whether hate speech and the like. And we even like produced videos showing people how to do that. We used the help from a puppeteer to basically make it funny videos so people can understand, how it impacts them. But with that, I mean, with this group of laws that are applicable, with the current cyber crimes law, because we have one since 2015, I mean, yes, we're not criminals when we use social media, but I can say that looking at these laws and even the existing one makes it feel that using this device is criminalized. Like having this speech, using this device, using this platform makes you a potential criminal unless you are proven otherwise. Because as Lina said, with these elastic terms, anything can be defamation, anything can be libel, and with a problem with speech. And if it's not even in the cyber crimes law, it can be penalized in laws like counterterrorism or in laws like penal code. It just it differs from what penalty we want to really apply. And this is basically what makes people concerned about that. There is a lot of self-censorship here when we talk, because really, I mean, people can use a bouquet of laws if they want to attack people from something that they wrote on social media.
Yeah, so I think this really beautifully makes the case that even if you are not a computer expert and you're using all these devices, etc., you really have to be very careful what you do. But at the same time, you don't want to be this auto-censoring internet user that is like feeling too responsible for what you're posting. So I think it's a very, very careful balance that we all have to learn to thread. So I'm looking at the different chats questions. I just wanted to first ask you, Dima, for the question that was asked about the cybercrime law in Jordan specifically. Like, did you evaluate the amendments, and do you think the new government and parliament will pass it?
So what happened after that campaign is that the government withdrew the problematic draft, and then they automatically, like very quickly, submitted another revised one to the parliament. That one had basically a little bit, that was more, okay, the amendments that were submitted to the parliament were more consistent in the use of terms and clauses to the ones that are used in the penal code. So we now know that hate speech in the cybercrimes law is the same as hate speech in the penal code. Some of the problematic penalties, for example, defamation, didn't have a ceiling for the penalty. And this authorized for pretrial detention. Now the penalty is still there, but it's reduced to 1 year, which basically doesn't qualify for pretrial detention, because that was the clause that was used by every single person, from the parliament to government and even other people, basically putting people in, in detention for a few weeks, just to horrify them a little bit, so for them not to repeat that. And so the law is still problematic in terms, the amendments in terms of international law, but it is much better than what we saw in the first draft. Now, the law has been tabled since the last parliament, as we know, and now the parliament has been elected with a new government. We still haven't seen this on top of the legislative agenda for this parliament. We hope that it stays tabled, but even if it stays tabled, it is still problematic because we still have this clause on electronic defamation being enforced. And this is where the whole issue about criminalizing speech in Jordan and in MENA still exists. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Dima, for addressing this. And I'm sure that everyone who listens, that we're really following this process closely in Jordan and also increasingly in other countries. Like I'm not aware of any country that has first adopted a law that criminalized speech and then removed the criminalization. What we did see from the Civic Freedom Tracker at ICNL is that a lot of emergency laws actually introduced criminalization of false information. So we saw a lot of provisions in laws that were addressing false information and then providing the explicit link to penal codes. And of course, we hope that this kind of emergency decrees, they cease to exist when the emergency is over. But yeah, we all know that is like emergency laws often permeate normal structures and legal environments. So this is something that really requires our attention. So we have a couple of minutes left, and what I wanted to address is that what I have heard yesterday from Usama from Bolobi in Pakistan, that there is this trend upcoming that some governments, because they are not amused about about how social media is used in their countries, are considering declaring the community guidelines void in their countries. I think that is a very very worrying trend. But at the same time, community guidelines is not always the solution. So I wanted to ask you, Lina, for your experience with this discretionary power that is exercised by Instagram and Facebook on the basis of their community guidelines.
Yes, I wanted to talk about this at first when you asked me what are the things we had to use to learn about when using social media. It was basically the rules and regulations like the community guidelines that are established by Facebook and Instagram. And I think there are some random measures or discretionary power exercised by Facebook and Insta because I don't see why we are developing extra laws when all the limitations are already established by their guidelines. Like we cannot formulate something that is considered hate speech or anything like that. But the problem is their regulations keep changing and it's not always precise. Like recently I faced a problem with Instagram. My account has been frozen. And I really don't know why, and we don't have like a specific argument or reason why this happened, which brings me to the fact that the only difference between defamation on social media or in real life, that in real life we get detained, on social media we get the account frozen, so it's practically the same. It's death in both lives. But yeah, things are not always very clear in their guidelines, and it's subject to discretionary power.
Thank you so much, Lina. And I'm really a little bit frustrated by you participants. You're starting to ask the questions now. So now we only have 3 minutes left. So unfortunately, we won't have enough time to really answer the questions, especially because we have warned that we will be cut off on the hour exactly, even though people are presenting or talking. So we have 3 minutes left, and I wanted to highlight some of the things that I heard from the three of you, and which are really, really interesting. And a lot apologies for the things I've been missing, but what I think is really interesting is the fact that friendly faces are attractive, young and old, and all of them in between. That it's very important to have something like very earthly, attractive messages, like free legal advice, but also this is happening when you chant. This is important to know when you use social media to share a video. And what you shared as well, Nahla, is the lack of an internet law. That really surprises me, because sometimes I have felt that internet laws, or very broad internet laws or cyber laws, are doing more harm. But now you really showed how a lack of this kind of law can also really prove to be harmful. And one participant suggested to have an international internet law that all governments have to abide by. I don't think it exists. I'm not sure if we would want like a cyber treaty like this one. But it's an interesting suggestion. So I just want to share as well that we will be offline, but we're participating in the Bread&Net. And please, for all your questions and follow-up ideas, please feel free to reach out to all of us and to stay connected. I'm just trying to be very careful of time, but maybe who wants to say the last words?
I mean, I just want to say that it's very important. Just legal awareness is as important as really being digital literacy. Just like hiring an accountant, I think every organization working on campaigns need to start considering hiring some digital advisors because it is becoming, a very vital point. On the questions that we didn't answer, we can answer them on the chat or the other conversation off the stage. Definitely, I'm very happy to provide more information. A campaign would be very, very helpful, definitely, with all stakeholders involved. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah. Also, for those who say, I know nothing about computers, you do know a lot about computers, and we also are there to help. Okay, thank you so much, Nahla, Lina, Dima. It was a massive pleasure to be with you today. I hope you all participants enjoyed it, and let's stay connected.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.